Welcome students of Standard 8 to the History and Civics session. In the previous session, I had explained about the legislature or the Union Parliament. Today, in this session, I will deal with another organ of the Indian government, that is the Union Executive. Just like the Union Legislature that takes all the decisions and approves them, the Union Executive carries out all the decisions of the Parliament, that is, it executes the laws and runs the administration of the country. The Union Executive comprises of the President, the Vice President, the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. India is a democratic country where we have parliamentary form both at the center and the state, and there are two executives, that is the Prime Minister and the President. The President is the head of the state and the permanent executive, whereas the Prime Minister is the head of the government and the political executive. These two executives are a part of the legislature and are assisted by the Council of Ministers. They are the elected representatives of the legislature. The power of the Union Executive is vested in the President. He or she is the constitutional head or the nominal head. He or she is regarded as the first citizen of India and is assisted by the Vice President, Cabinet Ministers and other heads of independent agencies. The Prime Minister is the real head of the government in the Union Executive and is assisted by the Council of Ministers. The powers of the President is actually used by the Council of Ministers, and the Prime Ministers with the Council of Ministers is the real executive. Now I'll deal with the Council of Ministers. The Council of Ministers' total strength is 15% of the Lok Sabha. They assist the President and the Prime Minister. The three categories of the Council of Ministers are the Cabinet Minister, who are the senior ministers, and actually they are the top level leaders of the ruling party or the parties who are in charge of the major ministry. Second one is the Ministers of State. They are the junior ministers with independent charges. They participate in the cabinet meeting only when they are invited. The third one are the deputy ministers, and actually they are also the ministers of state, but they are not independent. Rather, they assist the cabinet ministers and the ministers of state. Now here, there is a difference between cabinet ministers and the Council of Ministers. The Council of Ministers consists of all the ministers, that is the cabinet minister, the minister of state and deputy minister. But the cabinet ministers are the heads of important departments, or they are the senior ministers. The second difference between the Council of Ministers and the cabinet ministers are all the members of the cabinet are the members of the Council of Ministers, but all the members of the Council of Ministers are not the members of the cabinet ministers. Now, I will deal in detail about the powers and functions of the President. The executive powers. The President has the power to administer the union territory, which he does through an administrator appointed by him. All the union officials are his subordinates. He appoints the governor of an adjoining state as the administrator. That is, he is the head of the union administration. He appoints the PM and other ministers are appointed by him on the advice of the PM. He appoints and removes the officials of the state like Attorney General, Comptroller and Auditor General, judges of the Supreme and High Courts, and state governors, ambassadors, and high commissioners. The next one is the legislative powers of the president. He or she summons or dismisses the houses of the parliament, can also dissolve the Lok Sabha on the advice of the PM. He or she nominates the 12 members to the Raj Sabha and 2 members to the Lok Sabha and addresses the first session soon after the general election, and that session is a joint session. He gives his assent to make a bill a law. He issues ordinances but needs the legislative approval. He or she recommends for the formation or alteration of areas of the states. Next is the financial powers. The annual budget and the financial statement is laid in the parliament on his behalf. The contingency fund is at the disposal of the president. He recommends the money bill and appoints the finance commission. Next is the military power of the president. He is the supreme commander of the Defence Force of India. He declares war and peace and appoints the chief of the Defence Force. Next is the judicial power of the president. He is not answerable before any court. He can grant pardon, reprieve, or remission of punishment. Next is the discretionary power of the president. When no single party gets clear majority support, he can appoint a new PM on the advice of the outgoing PM. And the last one is the emergency power of the president. He can declare national emergency, financial emergency, and constitutional emergency. Now, I will discuss the difference between the office of the president and the vice president. But before that, let me tell you the position of the vice president in the Indian government. There is a vice president of India under the constitution who is the ex officio chairman of the Raj Sabha. He regulates the debates and proceedings of the House. In the absence of the vice president, there is a deputy chairman who is elected by the members of the Raj Sabha, and he heads the Raj Sabha. Then the vice president takes over the office of the president in his or her absence, that is in case of president's death, resignation, removal, etc. Now there is a difference between the president and vice president in terms of qualification, election, tenure, etc. In terms of qualification, the president must be qualified for election of the Lok Sabha, whereas the vice president, he must be qualified for the election of the Raj Sabha. In terms of method of election, president and vice president both are elected indirectly by the electoral college. But in the election of the president, the electoral college consists of the MPs and the MLAs. Whereas in the election of the vice president, the electoral college consists of the MPs. Here, in the election of the vice president, the state has no role to play. That is, the MLAs don't participate in the election. In matters of removal of the president and the vice president, the president is impeached, whereas the vice president is removed from the office. In the process of impeachment of the president, a resolution is passed by 2/3 majority support by both the houses of the parliament. And when it gets 2/3 majority support, the resolution, when it gets 2/3 majority support, the president stands impeached, whereas the vice president is not impeached. He is removed from his office, and in the removal process, a resolution is passed by the Raj Sabha with a majority support, and it is agreed by the Lok Sabha. There is no ground mentioned in the constitution for the removal of the vice president, but the president is removed on the grounds of violation of the constitution. Now, in matters of functions, all the executive powers of the union are vested on the president, and he exercises on the advice of the Council of Ministers of the Union. But the Vice President has no such powers. He is the acting president in the absence of the president, and he also acts as the ex officio chairman of the Raj Sabha. Now, I will deal with the Prime Minister and his powers and functions. As I have already told you, that the Prime Minister is the political executive and the real head of the Indian government. He is the pivot around which the governmental system revolves. He is, in matters of appointment of the Prime Minister, he is appointed by the President. And the qualifications required for the post of the PM are: he should be a citizen of India and should be a member of the Lok Sabha or the Raj Sabha, and above 25 years of age for the seat in the Lok Sabha and 30 years of age for the seat in the Raj Sabha. The term of office of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers can remain in the office so long as they enjoy the majority support in the Lok Sabha. The election of the Prime Minister. He is appointed by the President, that is the leader of the majority party in the Lok Sabha is chosen as the Prime Minister by the members of the Lok Sabha. Powers and functions of the Prime Minister. He advises the President in the appointment of the Council of Ministers, high officials, and he summons, prorogues the Parliament and even dissolves the Lok Sabha. He determines the size, categories and portfolios of the Council of Ministers, and he can even remove any minister from the Council of Ministers. He calls and presides the meetings of the Council of Ministers. He is the chief spokesperson of the government in the Parliament and in the foreign policies. He is the leader of the Lok Sabha and in turn leader of the nation. He represents India in international conferences and all foreign affairs. He acts as a link between the cabinet and the president. That is, he communicates to the president all the decisions of the cabinet or the council of ministers relating to the administration of the country. So now, children, it must be very clear to you that the Union Executive is one of the most important organs of the Indian democracy. The Constitution vests the executive powers of the Union formally in the President, but in reality, the President exercises these powers through the Council of Ministers headed by the PM. Thank you.